Hi everyone, I'm here. You probably know me from my videos on famous missionaries like Hudson Taylor or Jim Elliot, but today I want to highlight someone who doesn't get as much attention but is just as deserving of our admiration. This is the story of Sarah Paulton Cali, whose name might not be familiar to many, but whose impact in Brazil was profound. Today I'm diving into the life of a remarkable woman, Sarah Paulton Cali, a true pioneer in her time. Imagine growing up in a small village in 19th century Scotland. Life was simple, but the call to do something bigger was strong. That's where Sarah's journey started, a journey that would take her across the globe to Brazil and leave an everlasting impact. After marrying Robert Cali, they left their homeland, not for a leisurely vacation, but for a mission trip. Now, hold on a second. It's easy to picture Sarah as a typical missionary wife, but there's more. To her story, yes, she supported her husband, but she was no damsel in distress. No way, Sarah was a force to be reckoned with. Their journey was part of a larger movement, the Scottish missions to the Indians in Brazil, aimed at helping the indigenous people of Brazil. But let's be real, 19th century Brazil was not exactly welcoming to foreigners. In fact, it was quite hostile. Let's rewind a bit. Brazil was a land ripe for exploration and colonization. The Portuguese had already laid claim to this vast territory and were eager to exploit its riches, but they weren't alone for long. Soon, other European powers started showing interest in this new world. And by the 19th century, Brazil was a melting pot of cultures, a mix of indigenous tribes, African slaves, and Europeans, all trying to find their place in this new land. Now let's zoom in on religion. The Catholic Church was like the VIP guest at this party. Everyone else had to play by their rules. Non-Catholics were treated as second-class citizens. They couldn't practice their religion openly and were often mocked or harassed. Talk about a buzzkill. Amidst this religious tension, imagine trying to set up a school. Well, that was Robert and Sarah Cali's dream. They wanted to educate the children of the poor, especially the indigenous kids, but don't think it was all smooth sailing from there. Setting up their first school in 1834 was just the beginning. In 1836, they adopted the more localized spelling of their surname, dropping the H from Hamilton. This wasn't just a name change. It was a symbolic representation of their commitment to the land and its people. They were no longer just foreigners. They were becoming part of the Brazilian landscape. By 1840, they were ready to expand their mission. In May of that year, they relocated to Paraíba do Sul in the state of Rio de Janeiro. This move marked a significant chapter in their lives. It was here that they really immersed themselves in the local culture and deepened their connection with the land and its people. But let's be real, living in a foreign country in the 1800s wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. The Calis faced some serious challenges. Living conditions were tough, homes were simple, and diseases they'd never seen before were rampant, not to mention the language barrier. Imagine moving to a country where you don't speak the language. Everything from daily conversations to important negotiations became a game of charades. Despite these hardships, the Calis persevered. They adapted, learned the language, and continued their mission. And guess what? Their hard work paid off. The community they built was thriving. People from different backgrounds were coming together, sharing their cultures and creating a sense of belonging. As the years passed, Sarah's role in this community grew. Remember, she wasn't just a supportive wife, she was a force in her own right. She wrote hymns that became anthems for the community. Can you imagine singing songs that you helped write during your morning commute? For the Calis, music was more than just entertainment. It was a tool for spreading their message of hope and faith. But Sarah's contributions didn't stop there. She was a prolific writer, penning books that explored deep theological topics and personal narratives of their mission. Her work, the Scottish Galavidian Encyclopedia, stands out as a testament to her dedication. Imagine compiling a comprehensive guide to help others understand the Gaelic faith. That's what Sarah did. This book wasn't just a source of information, it was a beacon of light in a sea of darkness, guiding many towards the faith that had become their North Star. Throughout their mission, Sarah and Robert faced opposition, especially from the Catholic Church. The rigid religious hierarchy of the time wasn't a fan of outsiders, especially those who challenged their teachings. Imagine being told that your beliefs are wrong and that you have to hide them. That was the reality for many non-Catholics in Brazil. In 1848, they decided to expand their mission to Africa. This decision wasn't just about spreading their faith, it was about opening doors where none existed before. The mission in Africa became a hub of learning. Schools were established, not just to teach academics, but to impart values and faiths. But let's face it, challenging the status quo rarely comes without a price. The Callis faced constant scrutiny and at times open hostility. Think about it, they were going into areas where their presence wasn't welcomed. They had to be brave, resourceful, and deeply committed to their cause. Through it all, Sarah and Robert stayed true to their mission. They continued to spread their message of faith and education, knowing that every step was met with resistance. They also had to balance their desire to help with the need to survive. We're talking about a time when resources were scarce and dangers lurked around every corner. Yet, despite these odds, they built schools, churches, and most importantly, a community. They didn't just hand out fish, they taught people how to fish. They empowered the less fortunate, giving them the tools they needed to improve their lives. So how did they do it? How did they manage to make such an impact in such a challenging environment? The answer lies in their approach. They didn't just barge in with a do as I say, not as I do attitude. They integrated, they learned the local languages, customs, and challenges. They understood that to help someone, you need to walk a mile in their shoes. This approach wasn't always appreciated. Some saw it as a weakness, an attempt to be too much like the very people they were trying to help. But the Callis knew better. They knew that true connection could only come through understanding, not imposition. In 1876, Robert's health took a downturn, forcing them to return to Scotland. But guess what? Sarah's work wasn't over. Even from afar, she continued to advocate for their mission. She fundraised, organized, and inspired others to carry on their work. And how did she accomplish this? Sarah wasn't just a passive figure. She actively engaged with various groups, from local charities to influential individuals. She didn't shy away from asking for help. Instead, she passionately shared their mission, igniting the same spark in others that had driven her and Robert. Sarah's efforts bore fruit. People were inspired to contribute, whether it was with funds, resources, or simply their time and energy. Through Sarah's efforts, the mission not only survived, it thrived. In 1877, a series of devastating fires struck Rio, displacing numerous families. Instead of shrinking from this crisis, Sarah saw an opportunity to serve. She rallied the community she'd helped build over the years, organizing aid and support for those affected by the disaster. This act of swift and compassionate service solidified her status as a true leader, someone who wasn't just there in good times, but was a beacon of hope in the darkest of hours. Her tireless advocacy led to the establishment of several schools, hospitals, and churches across Brazil. These institutions didn't just serve as physical structures. They became symbols of hope, education, and faith. Each brick laid, each class held, each prayer offered was a testament to Sarah's enduring legacy. Sarah Paulton Callis' life was a tapestry woven with threads of courage, faith, education, and service. Her story is a reminder that true impact isn't always about being the loudest voice, but about planting seeds that grow into mighty oaks. As we reflect on her life, let's remember the quiet strength it takes to challenge norms, the faith that fuels one's purpose, and the courage to educate and serve. Sarah's bicentennial isn't just a historical marker. It's an invitation to look deeper, to honor hidden histories, and to recognize the profound influence of those who lead with quiet strength, compassion, and unwavering vision.